Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Team T Smoke Factory. I'm your host TJ Tilford, alongside my dad Terrence Tilford, and we're here to bring you a unique look at college football both inside and outside the lines. Last season, the Texas Longhorns could officially say they were back. 12-2 season to review their 2023 season. Very good year in the Big 12. Didn't take only one loss in the Big 12 last year in the Red River rivalry to Oklahoma, but overall 12-2 got to the college football playoff in a heartbreaking loss against Washington, a team that in my opinion had no business beating you, but you did lose heartbreaking fashion. That was their 2023 season.
Yes, and when you look at that season, a lot of times you would say that a team going 12-2 is an acceptable record. Now I know, hold on, Longhorn fans, that may not have been an acceptable record for you guys back then, but we got to keep things in recent history. So based on recent history, I think this was a very successful season for the Longhorns, even though they did kind of disappoint and lose unexpectedly to Washington. So we're looking at the 2024 season now and what they have on, still in the cupboard. So I'm looking at what they lost first, though. When we talking on their offense, you got to mention the big weapons.
Yes.
You lose A.D. Mitchell, you lose Xavier Worthy, and you lose Jatavion Sanders. Your receiving game is hurting with those three, with losing those three.
Yeah.
Those are big pieces that are off the board now.
Because Jatavion Sanders, he's a tight end, but he really moves like a receiver.
Absolutely. Nightmare for safeties, nightmare for linebackers. He's a tough matchup. And we're seeing that more and more. You just look at Travis Kelce, how he's a tough matchup for people. This guy is made in that mold. He's made in the mold of being a tough matchup for anybody, any safety, any linebacker. And even if you try to say, hey, go nickel corner on him, I think his size is going to take care of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is a big problem for defenses waiting to happen. Now that's the passing game. But you also have to look at the fact that they lost Jonathan Brooks in the running game. We're talking about 1,000-yard rusher. So that's not to be taken lightly either.
At all.
Those are four pieces that it might be a little bit difficult for them to replace. But what did they gain? Isaiah Bond. Everybody remembers Isaiah Bond, receiver out of Alabama. That catch, Alabama versus Auburn.
No business catching that pass, but
the DB falls asleep. Bond does his job, gets his feet down, touchdown, game over. They also gained Matthew Golden, wide receiver.
Out of Houston.
Yes. And he's expected to make a big splash here. We didn't see a whole lot of him, but I think it was because he was at Houston. And I think now being at Texas, that's going to make a difference for him.
His name is going to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then you got Silas Bolden. Now, you're talking about a little guy. This guy's like 5'8", 152 pounds. So, you would expect that the strong wind is going to just knock him over on the football field. Yet, this guy is a return specialist. He's a slot receiver that can give you a whole lot. He brings the speed to the table so he can get deep. He also has great hands. So, I think he's a good replacement for maybe Xavier Worthy.
Another fast guy.
Yeah, another fast guy that can get deep. Smaller. I'm not sure he has Xavier Worthy speed, though. That's
a stretch.
Yeah, that's some exceptional speed. But I think when you place him in the slot, another mismatch. We talked about the tight end being a mismatch in the slot for them. I think now he'll be that mismatch that they need. So we'll see how that goes. And then they bring in a tight end as well, Amari Niblack, big target. So, hopefully he can replace the target that was Jatavion Sanders.
Yeah. And to talk a little bit about their returning production, they bring back 4 of their starting offensive linemen from last year. They also bring back their general Quinn Ewers, running backs Jaden Blue and C.J. Baxter. These are 2 guys that when they were able to get on the field, Jonathan Brooks was there, so he was taking up a lot of the carries.
Mm-hmm.
But when they were able to get on the field, they shined a little bit, and I'm interested to see how they play together next year. Two-headed monsters in the backfield. I think their defense, me personally, it'll definitely drop off from their number 3 FBS ranking against the run last year. You know,
Of course.
you lost Tavondre Sweat and Byron
Murphy.
Those were two dominant defensive linemen that you had last year.
Huge body.
Yes.
Byron Murphy.
No. Tavondre Sweat was the one with the huge.
Oh
body.
yes. You're right.
Hands,
You're right.
all that.
Right.
He was a huge guy.
He used to be a receiver.
I know.
Imagine that.
If you look at his transformation from high school to college, when they say everything is bigger in Texas, he's kind of an example of that because he got huge. But nonetheless, they also lost Jalen Ford, their first team Big 12 linebacker from a season before.
Yeah.
Now, in the portal, they were able to gain a senior, and if I mess this up, I apologize, Toalai Savea out of Arizona. He's a defensive tackle. You brought in safety Andrew Mukuba out of Clemson. He's a hometown player who's coming back to Texas. You know, he came out of high school from Texas. He's coming back home to play for the Longhorns. You bring in edge Trey Moore. This is the guy I'm really excited about. 14 sacks last year for UTSA.
All right, so I think the other thing, we got to attack the elephant in the room. There's something that we got to look for in Texas football, and that is, how will they use Archie Manning?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're talking about a guy who didn't play last year. Remember, the backup was Malik Murphy, but now Malik Murphy's off the board. He's over at Duke. So now we're talking about the backup having no real game experience, but at the same time, he had all the hype. You look at their media day, and I think there was more coverage at the media day on Archie Manning than there was on Quinn Ewers.
There definitely was. That All-State Sugar Bowl, they even have a picture. All the media attention was at Arch Manning. None of it was at Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers might have had like 3 people. Arch Manning had a whole entourage of media behind him.
Absolutely. So, with that media hype, people are going to be, all it takes is for Quinn Ewers to have a little bit of a bad game here and there, and you're going to start hearing the crowd scream for Archie. But we also got to remember Quinn Ewers, he's kind of got the injury bug. I think in the last 2 years, he's missed some significant time in each year. So you're talking about Archie Manning having his shot. What will he do with that shot? Will he be ready when he's called upon, or will he fold?
Yeah. And something else that we have to look at when we're talking about Texas is, will they be bound for upset in 2024? In the 2023 season, they caught themselves on upset alert multiple times. You look at them losing to Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. They were both I'm pretty sure they were both inside the top 10 when they played, but Texas was still higher. That's still an upset. Kansas State from last year, that was a good Kansas State team, but you were better. Now, I understand Quinn Ewers didn't play that game. Malik Murphy was starting quarterback. But nonetheless, Kansas State is a team that put you on upset alert. Now, some bad teams that had you on upset alert, we're looking at Houston early in the season, who you only beat by 1 touchdown.
And Quinn Ewers played.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. And then you look at a TCU team. Yes, they were in the national championship the year before, but they sucked last year in 2023. They had you on the ropes. And then even Iowa State, up until, the last minutes, last quarter, they had you on the ropes. So, we're seeing a trend here. Texas has been bound to be on upset alert, and their schedule now shifting to the SEC, where there's going to be tougher teams. You could see them on the ropes a lot this year.
I agree. And that's just something that I think you see in Texas football quite a bit, is them being in some tough games. So this year, I don't think it'll be any exception. I think some of those games, even some of the ones that we may not expect, might be tighter than what's being predicted.
Yeah, most definitely. And we're going to go ahead and hop into the predictions now and then give you some final thoughts in the end. So first game, you have Colorado State at home. This is a decent Colorado State team. Everybody remembers that thriller they had with Colorado last year. But regardless, Texas is the better coach team, the more The more talented team,
Yes.
Texas will get this one.
I agree. You're talking about Texas talent against talent just funneling in from everywhere over to see State. And I would even say Colorado State's talent is a lot of people that are left over, didn't quite get the offers that they may have thought. And so, talent wise, is going to be a disparity. I say that same disparity is going to be shown on the scoreboard. Texas.
Next week at Michigan. This game has already been confirmed for Big Noon kickoff. This is a game that I go back and forth on so much. You know, both teams lost a lot, but both teams have some hype around them.
Mm-hmm.
This is a game that when the season starts, you know, when we get to that week, that I could switch my prediction. But Michigan is at the bottom of the FBS in returning production, and they lost their head coach as well. They lost a lot around that program. Still going to have a dominant defense. I think Alex Orji will shine as well, and so will Donovan Edwards, of course. But I think the formula to beat this Texas team, especially this early in the season, is to have a good passing game. And Michigan, we really don't know anything about their receivers. We know they have Colston Loveland at tight end, but nothing really about their receivers screams flash, you know, screams big players. That's why I got Texas in this one.
Okay. Now, anytime I see a matchup like this early in the season, my mind immediately goes to the defense. I think the offenses need a little bit of time to gel, to get the motor running, but I think defenses come along earlier in the season. So because of that, I'm going to look strictly at the defense and say who has the better D. They will prevail in that game. I'm sorry to say the better D goes to Michigan. They have a lot of pieces that they may have lost, but they got some returning pieces on that defensive front. And they also the defensive backfield. I think they got some talent back there as well. So they're going to pose a problem for Quinn Ewers, and I think that Texas will lose that one up in the big house.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting. Like I say, you know, this could shift the day before the game
Absolutely,
starts. You know, this is one
absolutely.
that I'm back and forth on. Next game, UTSA. Uh, you know, talent goes to Texas. Coaching, everything is with Texas. The game's in Texas. There's nothing to talk about.
No,
Texas will win this one.
Texas wins.
Same thing with UL Monroe. Texas, talent, coaching, all that. This game will go to Texas.
Yeah, this is those typical games that the SEC has where they put, a bunch of nobodies in the middle of the schedule. Texas big.
Now, their next game, their first SEC opponent, Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State is expected to be at the bottom of the SEC this year, and I think they will be as well. That's why I got Texas in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Mississippi State is a team. It's interesting looking at them over the years, though. It's like they kind of fluctuate through where they want to sit in the SEC. Do they want to be in the higher middle ground, or do they want to be at the bottom? Either way, Texas is going to come in. They'll get their first win in the SEC against Mississippi State.
Yeah. Their next week, Red River Rivalry, Oklahoma. Now this year it'll be a little different. It's being played in Dallas, AT&T Stadium. So the setting will be a little bit different. Oklahoma upset you last year on basically a go-ahead touchdown to put them in the lead, final seconds. Oklahoma is still a very talented team this year, though. They bring back Brent Venables at head coach. You know, he was a defensive guy at Clemson. You've got a quarterback, Jackson Arnold. He's a rising star, and you have one of the top receiving cores. With that being said, Oklahoma, I think they're gonna have a down year in their first year in the SEC. They're gonna have some bumps in the road. They're still gonna be a good team. I think they'll give you a run for their money. Like you said, or like I said earlier, 2023, Texas had a lot of upset alerts. I think this will be an upset alert game, but I think that Texas will win.
I'm going to go with Texas in this game simply because I think by this time the offense would have gelled. They'll be able to produce some numbers. I just don't believe that Oklahoma has the talent to produce this on the scoreboard the same way that Texas will. So Texas wins the game.
Now their next week, big game, biggest game of the season. You got to face Georgia. Good thing you got them at home. I don't like the timing of this game right after the Red River rivalry. because that's a rivalry. That game's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be high emotions, high
Mm-hmm.
motor, all that. So you don't want to have a letdown
Mm-hmm.
after a big win. I think back to Ohio State a few years ago, big win against Penn State, comeback 2017. Next week, lay the egg to Iowa, big,
Yes.
and it's not going to be better for Texas since this is such a big game.
Yeah.
You go from big game to the biggest game. Georgia, it's close. I think it'll be close up until the end. Two former Nick Saban assistants. I think Kirby Smart is the better one, and I think Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs will walk into Texas and get this win.
I agree, but you don't believe in Steve Sarkisian?
I believe in Steve Sarkisian, but my faith goes more to Kirby Smart. I
Okay.
believe more in Kirby Smart than I do in Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, that was a trick question.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Kirby Smart is a higher level coach than Steve Sarkisian has proven to be thus far. Um, you're talking about the coach with the proof is in the pudding. He's winning national championships,
Yeah.
whereas Steve Sarkisian has yet to rise to that level. So starting at the head coaching, I think the lean goes to Georgia. Then you bring in the situation as you did when you're talking about them coming off of a huge game, how much energy it takes for them to get up for that rivalry game and then have to come back and say, "Oh, we got to welcome not last year's, but the year before, defending champion." That's a whole lot of weight on his shoulder, and you're talking about a Georgia team that's coming in with a lot.
Yeah.
They're not coming in with any reloads. They're coming in with a lot. So I think on this one, you got to lean more towards Georgia. They're a proven product already. Uh, Texas was last year a fluke. We'll have to see. We're going to go with Georgia in that one.
Now their next game, a good game to get back on the win column.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's not going to present a challenge
Right.
to you. At least they shouldn't. I got Texas big.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas big. When this schedule got made up, I would have liked to see the SEC get this schedule right. Vanderbilt should have played Texas after the Oklahoma game.
Yes.
How they put Texas in this situation where they have to play Oklahoma, get all the energy up for that game, and come right back to try to get all the energy up again next week against Georgia. Bad scheduling.
But nonetheless, Vanderbilt will not.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they will not beat Texas.
I'm sorry, I just overlooked that altogether. I don't think it mattered. Vanderbilt will lose.
Yeah. Their next week, they have Florida at home. So Florida's going to Texas. Florida, like you said in the last video, down year for them. I think I won't say it will be a down year, but I think there'll be a lot of growing pains. And I have Texas in this one. Texas, the more talented team, better coach team. I have Texas.
I agree. There's going to be a lot of growing pains for Florida, and this game is going to be one of the growing pains. I believe that with the talent that Texas has, I think they will run ruckshot on that defense that has so many holes. And because of that, I think I'm not even thinking that this one's going to be close. I think that Texas is going to win this game by a big margin.
I think the upset alert, it'll be closer than people expect, but Texas, they'll pull away at least 2 scores, probably 3.
Yeah. I'm thinking 3 scores at least.
Their next game, Arkansas. Arkansas, they're a team that some people have super high, some people have really low. I have them pretty low, not gonna lie. This game is in Arkansas, so that could present some problems for Texas. But Texas, once again, like almost every game on their schedule, better coach team, more talented team. Mm-hmm. Texas will win.
Yep, I agree. Arkansas, there was a time where Arkansas could be counted on to pull off one big game a year. I just don't see Texas as being that one. I don't think Arkansas focuses on Texas the way that they do on Alabama and teams of that manner. So I think Texas goes and wins this game pretty convincingly.
Yes. Now their next game, they senior night or senior day for them, Kentucky. Kentucky's been a team that's been trending upwards the
Mm-hmm.
past few years. You know, you constantly see them getting ranked all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
and then they usually have that big loss to Georgia that kind of
Mm-hmm.
ruins their season. Uh, but nonetheless, they're trending upwards, but they're not more talented than Texas. They're not on Texas's level yet. I see them as like a tier three SEC
Yeah.
team, while Texas is right around that tier one area. And I think Texas will beat Kentucky.
I think Kentucky goes in there and puts up a good fight. All in all, I think they come out with a loss because this is usually the time of year that Kentucky it starts their downward
Yes,
spiral.
spiral. Yeah.
So I think until they show me their ability to finish a complete season, I'm going to lean on Texas being able to pull this one out. But I think it's going to be a closer game than some people might be thinking.
Now, final game of the season at Texas A&M. Texas A&M has been a team that has trapped teams in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look back a few years when they beat Alabama. That 12th man crowd is serious.
Yes.
It's very serious, you know. But Texas A&M, it's hard to determine, or it's hard to determine what they will be this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some things show positive, some things show negative. But there's a lot more negatives, in my opinion, than there are positives. You're talking about a team that has shifted through like 7 starting quarterbacks in the past 2 years due to injury.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't found solid ground at quarterback, and I think they haven't found solid ground as a team in general and a head coach. Texas, it will be close because of the crowd. The crowd will make that game close, but Texas, you can't fumble at the finish line, and that's why I'm taking Texas to win this game.
Yeah, you bring up some interesting points about Texas A&M. You think a few years back when they surprised Alabama,
Yeah,
and the you brought up quarterback play. The kid was Calzaga, I believe, was
yeah,
his name that threw the game-winning
yeah.
touchdown.
He's not there anymore.
Exactly. I'm like, so if you had issues at quarterback, how did you let him get away?
Yeah,
Good question. Then I look at this too. One of the big pieces for Texas A&M is going to be the fact that they're bringing in a new head coach this year,
yeah,
and I think that, Elko, good coach, he did some great things over at Duke, but I think he's going to need time in order to kind of do the same thing over at Texas A&M. I look for Texas A&M to be a problem for people coming up in the next few years. I just don't think it'll be this year. Give me Texas.
So that's our predictions. I have Texas finishing at 11-1, while you have them finishing at 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, this is a team that could very well end up with 4 losses. I look at early in the season against Michigan. I think you could lose that one. I think you could lose the Red River rivalry for 2 years in a row to Oklahoma. And I think you could lose to Georgia as well. I think you will lose to Georgia. But Texas A&M, I think that's a team that could trap you. So this is a team that could end up struggling in their first year in the SEC with 4 losses, in my opinion.
Just like you said, they could easily lose 4. Well, I'll flip it, and I say this very well could be a team that goes 12-0. I think the schedule, if coached right, could play in their favor. You get Michigan on the road, but it's early in the season. So can you get that offense to produce in the big house early in the season? Because I really think that Texas's defense can hold their own against that run game, even although they no longer have the big guys in the middle. I think they still can hold their own against that Michigan team and come out with a win there. I think they'll have to skate out with one, but I think they can come out with a win against Michigan. And then this is how the schedule sets up in their favor. You got Oklahoma on a neutral field, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to get all your energies up for that game. But if they win that game, and they win that game kind of convincingly, or a sound victory, it can very well create momentum for them rolling into that Georgia game. And Georgia has to come all the way on the road to Texas. Maybe that's too much for Georgia, and Texas can win another close game. And then from there, the schedule is sitting perfectly in their favor. I think we picked them all the games for them to win from that point on. Texas very well could come out of this thing 12-0.
Yeah, they very well could. I'm not gonna. I feel like that's not ridiculous to say.
Yeah.
This is a well coached Texas team. We have to see how well that talent can back it up in terms of what they lost and what they've gained.
Right. Right.
We'd love to know what you guys think about this Texas team. This is a team that could very well sneak into the playoffs, or not even sneak. I think this is a team that could be a high seeded
Yeah.
team in the
I think
playoffs.
even with their 2 losses, they can still make it in.
Yeah, they'll make it with 2. As long as they don't go to 3 and over, I think they'll be a lock for the playoffs. But we'd love to know what you guys think. Like and subscribe. Follow all our social medias listed below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.